Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Davy Au, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Keenan Wellar, the co-leader and director of communications at Live, Work, Play. Live, Work, Play helps the community welcome and include people with intellectual disabilities, autistic persons, and individuals with a dual diagnosis to live, work, and play as valued citizens. Thanks for joining us today, Keenan.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, to begin, why don't you tell us and our listeners a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to work at Live, Work, Play and with individuals with disabilities as a whole?
Sure, my pleasure. I think it all started as a student at the University of Ottawa and just someone who was looking for some part-time work during my studies. And I came across a really interesting opportunity to work with local people with disabilities in the Ottawa area. I didn't know too much about that field. I'd done a lot of work with youth, but I thought it would be interesting. And I got hired for that position part-time and got really interested, mainly because my eyes were open to the lack of opportunities, especially for people with intellectual disabilities and autistic persons in our community, and just realizing how quite different my life was from their life and the reasons for that, and just kind of wanting to be a part of the change of how I could play a role in making that different. And I went to work in the school system for a while and again met more individuals and their family members. And actually, I was a teaching assistant and I got hired to work over the summer with a lot of the family members because they needed help with their school-age kids during the summer. And it was never something I had planned as a long-term career. I also went to teachers college because I thought I was going to be a special education teacher. But then through some twists and turns, I actually ended up working in the IT sector for a while. But this was always remained a passion of mine. And when I met Julie Kingston, who would later become my wife, and we started working on just a volunteer advocacy organization to support families in our community. And it ended up becoming Live, Work, Play, and we left our jobs. And 30 years later, here I am.
And that's absolutely amazing. And I think it should go without saying that we thank you for wanting to be a part of the change, for continuing to be part of that change that you sought out, that we're all hoping for. Even up until now. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And, it's one of those things. I was kind of adrift in life and not really happy with the work I was doing. And I just never thought this could be a career. And I'm just so grateful to the families and most of all individuals with intellectual disabilities who've put their trust in me and my colleagues and our volunteers for all of these years, because it's really all about them. And it's truly it's an honor and a privilege just to do this kind of work.
Absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well. Now, that being said, in preparing for this interview with you today, I was looking over your website and noticed that you had a bunch of really cool stuff to look through. On the one hand, you had some stuff. You had an area for employment support. And you also have something called the 7 principles. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about both of those and what they entail?
You bet. I mean, the 7 principles of just enough support, we actually developed, and we use it for the community supports we provide, so people to live in homes of their own and engage with others in their community. And we use it for our employment supports. It's just kind of an overriding guideline of how we want to conduct ourselves and hold ourselves accountable. It actually has its roots, in social role valorization. So that's all things that other people have done before, and we've just refined it for ourselves. And for us, it definitely came out of the person-centered movement and person-centered planning and person-centered support. But we just found it was very hard to explain that to people and families who were used to very programmatic structures, like you come to an agency and you sign up for a program, and that wasn't really the way we were looking at it at all. It's like you come to us because you have things you want out of life, and we would help you achieve those or find others who can and follow your lead. So just saying that, though, it was very disorienting for families. So we needed more of a framework and also how to hold ourselves more accountable. Well, what does that really mean? What does person-centered support? What does it mean? How do we know when we're doing it right? And so we initially had 6 principles, then ended up with 7, and we're pretty comfortable with that now. But you can see, if you see the image on our website, it's all framed around the main principle is just honoring personal autonomy. And that's really important. At all times, are we doing our best to make sure that we know what the person wants and that we're delivering on that, and also that people can change their minds. We don't force someone to continue in a course of action or a schedule just because 6 months ago they had a meeting and they said that's what they wanted. People have the right to change their minds, and so the respect for that, I think, is really key. And then, how does that relate in something like, example, our employment services? Well, sometimes as an employment services provider, there are benefits to you just financially, just by getting a person a job, any job. And to be honest, there are abuses in employment support systems. And we wanted to say, no, it's the same principles that we use in community support, we use in employment support. So it's got to be a job the person wants. They're properly informed. It's their decision. We've done everything we can to make sure that this is the best fit for them. So I could go into all the 7 principles. That would probably be the whole interview, but that is basically the foundation of it.
Fair enough. Now, and also preparing for this interview, I was also reading on your website too a little bit about the organization's history and and a bunch of other things associated with the organization's history as well. This next little tip will tickle my fancy, considering that I'm a writer myself, and I noticed that you also wrote a book on your first 20 years. Do you think you could tell us a bit about that book and how we can get access to read it?
Yeah, at this point, it's just even free as a PDF on our website. We stopped worrying about it selling it. We did sell it definitely originally in 2015 for our anniversary, and that's a funny story because a very important mentor of ours, Al Condoleezza, who's a professor out of Pittsburgh. He's emeritus now, I believe, but still publishes lots of work around social capital and just amazing videos and books in our field. And he basically said to Julie and I, like, you should not let this 20 years go by without, some kind of a book to commemorate all your work. Wait, I didn't really think that was in the cards, but just kind of took it to heart. And in all the work of developing the 20th anniversary, we realized there's an awful lot of content here, and we could put it in a book form. So that's what we did. It's kind of like a picture book. It's interspersed with lots of wonderful photos and memories, but also the actual speeches that were delivered on that 20th anniversary, and it just walks through the whole journey and all our wonderful mistakes and progress all bundled together.
Fair enough. And I mean, fair enough. And now to that end, I mean, there's so much more that I could even ask on in terms of the history. But for the sake of time, I guess we'll just keep. We'll just keep going. The next question I have for you involves, I guess, in a ways, mentorship or volunteering with Live Work Play. If any of our listeners or just any person wanted to become a member of Live Work Play or wanted to sign up as a volunteer, what would the process be like for either one, for both?
Great question. I think the a big part of the history was realizing we needed to use volunteers differently and more effectively. And so we have about 150 active volunteers right now, which may or may not sound like a lot, depending on other people's experiences. But we're a relatively small organization with about 25 staff. So if you have 25 staff and 150 volunteers, that's a big ratio. And what we did, we made the decision some time ago that if we're going to recruit volunteers for the purpose of supporting community inclusion, it needs to be as authentic and flexible as possible. And initially, we'd started out a bit programmatic. There were basically, events that we organized, once a week, and then volunteers were kind of coming and supporting people to go out and enjoy concerts or go to a restaurant or go to a sporting event. And that was great. People appreciated it. It was often they were not getting out at all. So there wasn't like we were getting complaints. But then it started to evolve. Well, between the volunteers and individuals they're supporting, there's often the activity that we've scheduled. They're not actually interested in that. And they're just going because it's, quote, the program. And so we took a really hard look at that and we said, this has to be done differently. And what we did was we evolved it like the international meetups movement, which is just where, people have a shared interest and then you can go to these meetups, like let's say, like I am. If we're talking NFL, I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So wherever I was in the world, I would want to be able to go and hang out with other people and watch the game. So we kind of adopted that model for ourselves. So every Friday in the Ottawa area here in Canada, we will have up as many as 10 different meetups going on all over the city. And it's all different locations. It's all different types of activities and interests. And then the volunteers and the individual with disabilities that we support, they are choosing what they want to do from all that myriad of options, and then they're meeting up there together. So that's a big part of what our volunteers do. And the other piece, we just call it matching. which is we match people around shared interests. So it could be video games, hiking, music, anything. And then we basically train the volunteer, of course. They have to realize all sorts of safety precautions and things. But once that's all done, it's really about two people getting to know each other, and we check in and provide some logistical support. But those often grow into friendships, and it becomes nothing to do with live work play at all. They're just off on their own as friends, and we're just happy that we were the people that got it started. And that's kind of the two things that we do with volunteers.
Fair enough. Is there any sort of like specific process as to becoming a volunteer though?
Absolutely. There is a really great training by our volunteer coordinator, Alex Darling, and she'll walk people through that full training. And the other thing we did, which was really important, we don't make people wait very long. So it's very rare anyone would wait more than 1 month. If they said, like, I really want to volunteer, they would get an intake meeting scheduled. They would meet with Alex. They would go through all that training. And then the next step is really, depending on which avenue they've chosen, if they're going to be a meetups volunteer, or they're going to be a one-on-one match, obviously meeting the individual or the group and getting introduced to how it actually works. And that is also well supported by our team. But we try to make it not too hard. There are definitely mandatory things we need to do, police checks and all that sort of thing. But we try to make that as seamless as possible for the volunteer. And really, it's all about the relationships. So we do all the necessary things and hopefully do that well. But then it's like, quickly, how do we get people into the point where they are meeting people and enjoying themselves? Because one of the feedback we frequently get, and why our volunteer program is rated so high in the community, is just that there's a lot of complaints that the volunteer recruitment and intake process is still very a little too static for people. It takes too long. There's a lot of paperwork, all these sorts of complaints. So we did our best to reduce that and just get people into volunteering as quickly as possible. It's worked very well.
Fair enough. And somewhat conversely, what about membership? Is there a process? Is there a membership process? Are there any restrictions to becoming a member? Anything of that nature?
Yes, we used to have more of a different membership process for Live Work Play, but we have basically donors, volunteers, and individuals supported by the organization. And then we have also employment partners. Trying to think, the list kind of goes on that way. But our voting membership is now 30 people from a different representation from each of those categories. And that's managed by our board of directors. They basically invite those people and they become effectively the voting members of the organization. And then we also use the word members just to reference anyone who is being served by the organization and our community supports. And that is basically a historical nod to the fact that we want the relationship to be more than just people acquiring services, that we want an input and an engagement that goes far beyond that. And it includes the opportunity, for example, to be a voting member that elects our board of directors, and other opportunities. So that's kind of where we use that word a lot. It has a lot of different meanings, but those are some of the meanings of membership.
Fair enough. And any restrictions to membership at all?
Not many, just the usual around, you have to be a certain age and agree to follow, that you agree with the Live Work Play mission, vision, and values. It does. That goes on quite a bit. Our mission, vision, values. You started the show with the mission, but we also have a series of value statements that are actually associated with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and we adopted those as a membership in 2011. And so it's very important that people do agree to that if they want to be a part of the organization. And really, it's all just based around our belief in community inclusion. So not segregating people in any aspect of their lives from the rest of the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this next question, without naming any names or getting too specific, are there any success stories that you could share with us today? Say about a member or a volunteer who happened to pass through the organization and where they ended up now?
Certainly. And a lot of those are public. So I still won't name names, but I'll tell stories that are already public and well cherished by our community. So we will be celebrating on May 9th of this year. That'll be our 30th anniversary. And just by luck, it happens to be, we will be celebrating the 60th person that we have supported to move to a home of their own, so their own apartment or house or whatever it might be. And that individual has been on a really long journey with us. When he first came to the organization, he was pretty much fresh out of high school. And a few years later, unfortunately, his mother passed away and quite young. And we were wondering, what is we going to do? We were not set up as a housing organization at the time, but we were really one of this person's only connections outside of his family. And so we organized some other agencies in our area, and we just put out an ask, does anyone have any thoughts or ideas? And through that, located an individual. He's a teacher in our community, and he had a house. And he said, well, I could be a sort of a benevolent landlord, and he could live with me as long as you could also provide support to him. We thought, well, that's interesting. So that went on for many, many years until both of them came to us and said, you know what? He's probably ready for his own place. And so that is happening this month. And then we will celebrate that on May 9th as the 60th person that we have helped to move to a place of their own. It also comes with a scholarship. We have a sponsor who helps people with some startup money when they first move out. So it's going to be a big celebration and an amazing milestone.
Absolutely amazing to hear. That is inspirational. That is really inspirational too. I would say. Now, next, I get well. This next question can be answered differently based on the person, and it can be a little loaded. But what is one thing you see happening repeatedly to individuals with disabilities that shouldn't be, and how do we go about stopping it?
Yeah, that is a big question. I think I could obviously point to issues of poverty and lack of affordable housing, and everyone tends to know about those things because they also affect other populations, but those are huge barriers: unemployment, lack of housing. I would say move back a bit earlier in people's lives, and something that really concerns me is just the lack of expectation or accountability for them going through the school system and starting a life afterwards. And that is really back in the day when my wife and I were talking about, should we start up this advocacy organization? That was the focus. We called it the post 21 issue because we were really just how tragic it was and how sad families were that, their loved ones were staying in high school as long as they can because they didn't really see what was coming next. And then when they finally had to leave, there really wasn't much of a plan for them. And they were just ending up at home having lost the structure of school and the friendships that came with that and being very isolated. And we find that has not changed very much. The focus of the education system is not really directed towards the post-secondary future of these individuals the way it is for other students. So there just needs to be more help, getting them started in the world of work. There's not enough programs that support summer employment, part-time employment. There's tends to be some co-op placements and things, but they're not very effective. Your first paid job is your first paid job. And most of us have that before we leave high school. And it's very important to have that experience. The likelihood you'll end up in the labor market, it corresponds very strongly to, how much paid work experiences you have. And so I think denying people those opportunities and just not having the expectation that they will further their education, that they will have a job, that they will have a place of their own, not having that expectation of ourselves as a society, like this is something that should be happening. I think it really holds people back because it changes the whole focus of the adult services are still way too focused on just the warehousing of adults with disabilities, especially people with intellectual disabilities, that, it's just about keeping them somewhere for the next 50 years. And it's just not good enough. We need to be, using the precious public dollars we have to really focus on what are the outcomes? What are our expectations of this? And the benefit is it's not that complicated, at least not for us. I mean, our expectation is, well, they should have a home of their own, a job, friends, full engagement in their community. And that should be how we measure the success of these systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And in today's economy, that strain may definitely be felt a whole lot more, I would say as well. But that being said, circling back to something that you mentioned that you spoke on earlier in this interview, in terms of events, you mentioned what was it? These meetups or these sort of gatherings that happen in Ottawa and other activities being hosted as well. Are there any on that note? Are there any sort of events or any other events or fundraisers coming up that Live Work Play will be hosting or will be part of?
Yes, absolutely. Because it is our 30th year. We've moved some things around a bit. So we usually have a gathering in April, which is just a fun meetup of about 200 of our best friends, and we just get together and have dinner together and have some fun celebrations. But this year we actually moved our annual awards to that event. It's going to be on April the 10th, and probably be about 100, 150 people for that. And we're going to be celebrating inclusive employers, community partners, and some individual awards as well. That'll be a really fun event, and nice and casual, affordable, and it's really open to any community members. It's at a wonderful building where our office is located that has this great old industrial gathering space that's been made into a modern sort of IT space. So we'll be hosting that at Bayview Yards on April 10th. Then on May 9th is our traditional Make a Buzz Ottawa. It's our typically where we do our awards every year, but we left space because we're going to be celebrating a whole 30 years. We've got live music with a group called Dueling Pianos, which interesting is actually 3 people because one of them plays guitar, but don't worry about that. So that's going to be really fun on May the 9th. That'll probably be getting closer to 300 people. And it's a dinner and celebration and music.
Well, and I'm sure that'd be absolutely great to know. I'm sure those events will be absolutely amazing. Now, if any of our listeners are interested in attending those events or just looking for more information as to, I don't know, being getting more involved with the organization as being a member or as a volunteer, how can they find you? How can they reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way, sounds like you've been there and found out quite a few things. So if you go to liveworkplay.ca, and you'll see there's a whole menu there, and our events are also right at the bottom on the homepage, but there's also an events link. There's a link for volunteering, and if there's employers out there that are curious, I've been talking about hiring people with disabilities. That is a huge part of what we do, and we have a link for employers who want to get involved, and no pressure. We'll just come and learn about your business, and we might have some suggestions of some great employees that could help you meet your human resources needs. So that's another important link on our website. And our phone number's there, 613-235-9550. And you can find the right department or topic of your interest. And we're always happy to hear from you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being here with us today, Keenan.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And with that, we've reached the end of yet another amazing interview segment. You're listening to Community Partners presented by Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. I'm your host, Davy Au. Be safe, be kind, and I'll see y'all next time.